When my wife came back from a work trip to Miami, everything changed. The woman I trusted more than anyone in the world had a secret, and I was about to uncover it in the most public way possible. Before we begin this story of love and betrayal, kindly support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Let's dive into today's. For 6 years, I believed I had the perfect marriage. Evelyn, my wife, and I shared everything, or so I thought. Our lives were intertwined with laughter, dreams, and plans for the future. We built a life that seemed unshakable, filled with trust and mutual support. Every anniversary, every shared memory, strengthened the belief that we were invincible as a couple. But all of that came crashing down during a seemingly ordinary work trip to Miami. Evelyn had been enthusiastic about the upcoming conference for weeks. It was a big deal for her career, a chance to showcase her talents and cement her position as a key player in her marketing firm. As the team lead, she was tasked with preparing a major presentation alongside her boss, William. I had only met William once at a formal company dinner. He came across as polite but distant, hardly someone who lingered in my thoughts. Her excitement about the trip was contagious. I remember how her eyes lit up as she talked about the opportunities it would bring. "This could be a turning point for me," she'd said, her voice filled with determination and hope. And I was proud. I admired her ambition and supported her unconditionally, never doubting her intentions for a moment. As the day of her departure drew closer, I helped her pack, reassuring her that everything at home would be fine in her absence. "Focus on your work," I told her. "You've got this." It never crossed my mind that the trip could become anything other than a professional milestone. My trust in her was absolute. But sometimes, life is a way of unraveling the things we hold most dear. Little did I know, that trip to Miami would expose cracks in our relationship that had been hidden from view. It would reveal a side of Evelyn I had never seen before, a side that forced me to question everything I thought I knew about her, about us. The morning Evelyn left for Miami, everything seemed normal. She kissed me goodbye at the door, her suitcase neatly packed and ready. "I'll call you every night," she said with a reassuring smile, her confidence in the trip and what it meant for her career shining through. I smiled back, wishing her luck and telling her how proud I was. That first night, she kept her promise. Her voice on the other end of the line was lively and filled with excitement. She described the luxurious hotel, the packed conference schedule, and the sheer energy of the event. But then she mentioned William. It wasn't unusual. After all, he was her boss and collaborator on the presentation. Her words were full of praise. How brilliant he was, how his feedback made her work even better, and how supportive he'd been throughout the process. I dismissed the uneasy feeling in the pit of my stomach, chalking it up to my own insecurities. She was simply impressed by a colleague. By the third day, however, things began to change. The nightly calls dwindled into brief, impersonal text messages. "Long day, so tired," she wrote one evening. The next day, she sent a short text, "Heading out with the team for dinner. Can't talk." I told myself she was just busy, overwhelmed by the demands of the conference. After all, Evelyn had always been dedicated to her work. As the days went on, the distance between us grew, not just physical, but emotional. Her updates became shorter, less detailed. When I asked about the presentation, she responded with vague phrases. "It's coming together." When I tried to ask about her day, she deflected, saying, "Nothing interesting, just work stuff." It felt like she was shutting me out, brick by brick, building a wall I couldn't see over. I wanted to trust her. I really did. For 10 years, she'd been my partner, my confidant, my everything. But for the first time in our marriage, I felt the solid foundation of our relationship beginning to crack. Something was different. Something was wrong. And yet I told myself to wait. She'd be home soon, and everything would return to normal. It wasn't until Evelyn returned home that my suspicions began to solidify. At first, I tried to tell myself it was nothing, just the lingering exhaustion of a demanding work trip. But she was different. The easy warmth in her eyes had been replaced with something distant, almost guarded. Conversations that once flowed freely between us now felt stilted, with her offering short responses and avoiding eye contact. Every time her phone buzzed, she'd glance at it quickly, her body tensing before she set it face down on the table. One evening, while Evelyn was in the shower, her phone lit up on the nightstand. A message notification caught my eye. It was from William. My heart skipped a beat as I read the preview. Here are the pictures from last week. Curiosity, or maybe desperation, overpowered my better judgment. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the phone, before finally picking it up. I tapped the notification, and a series of photos filled the screen. The first few seemed harmless enough. Evelyn and William at the conference podium, smiling confidently, a group shot of her team at dinner, and a candid of her explaining something to a small crowd. But then, as I scrolled further, I froze. There were some photos that stood out, ones that didn't seem like part of a professional trip. Evelyn was lying on the beach in a bikini, her hair loose and carefree, with William reclining beside her in shorts. The way they were positioned, so close yet casual, made my chest tighten. What struck me most was the absence of anyone else. None of her coworkers, no sign of a group activity, just Evelyn and William on what looked like an intimate beach outing. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Why had she never mentioned this? The image spoke volumes, even if no words had been exchanged. It wasn't just a I decided to act as if everything was fine. Confronting Evelyn right away wasn't an option. I didn't have enough to go on, and the thought of an explosive argument scared me. I told myself I needed to be patient, to wait for the right moment to uncover the truth. So I smiled when she smiled, laughed at her jokes, and pretended the growing pit in my stomach didn't exist. But every time she avoided my gaze or tucked her phone away as if guarding it, my resolve to find out the truth only strengthened. I started watching for opportunities to access her phone. It wasn't easy. Evelyn had grown unusually protective of it, keeping it within reach at all times. Still, I waited. Late one night, after she had fallen asleep, I carefully slipped the phone from her nightstand. My hands shook as I unlocked it, using the passcode I'd known for years but had never felt the need to use until now. What I found shattered whatever hope I had left. Her messages with William were anything but professional. They were intimate, flirty exchanges and inside jokes that hinted at a closeness far beyond coworkers. My chest tightened as I scrolled further, my worst fears unfolding with every word. Then I came across a message that made my blood run cold. Have you told him you want an open marriage? If he doesn't accept, tell him you found someone else. The weight of the words hit me like a punch to the gut. Evelyn hadn't mentioned anything to me. She was enjoying her secret life too much to risk disrupting it. I realized that she had no intention of being honest with me. She was balancing two lives, the wife I thought I knew and the woman secretly involved with her boss. The betrayal ran deeper than I had imagined. As I read on, it became clear how far their relationship had gone during that work trip. Evelyn hadn't just been working late or bonding with her team. She and William had spent significant time together, alone, indulging in their connection. And because of their close relationship, William had given her a promotion. Everything fell into place. The excitement before her trip, her newfound distance, the way she'd spoken about William with such admiration. It wasn't just a work trip to her. It had been the foundation for the life she was building without me in it. I placed the phone back where I found it, my hands trembling with anger and heartbreak. I couldn't believe the woman I had loved for 6 years, the woman I had built a life with, was capable of such deceit. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, anger coursed through me like a wildfire. Evelyn slept soundly beside me, oblivious to the storm brewing in my chest. I couldn't believe how easily she had betrayed me and how comfortably she seemed to carry on as if nothing had happened. She wasn't just unfaithful. She was manipulative, selfish, and entirely unrepentant. The thought of her going scot-free, continuing to live this double life while I suffered in silence, made my blood boil. I knew I couldn't let her get away with it. She had destroyed our marriage, disrespected me, and even used her affair to advance her career. The promotion she had gloated about, the one she said was based on her hard work, was now tainted by the knowledge of how she had truly earned it. I deserved better, and if she thought she could trample over me and walk away unscathed, she had another thing coming. As the days passed, I started to think about how to make her pay, not out of blind rage, but as a calculated response to the humiliation she had inflicted upon me. Revenge became a seed in my mind, one that grew with every interaction we had. I couldn't confront her outright. I needed her to think everything was normal, to believe she had fooled me. The satisfaction of catching her completely off guard fueled my determination. I began plotting carefully, considering all the ways I could expose her. She had built a shiny facade, projecting herself as a dedicated wife and hard-working professional. But behind closed doors, she was a liar and a cheat. I wanted the world to see her for who she truly was. Part of me fantasized about sending the incriminating messages and photos to her friends and colleagues, exposing the truth about her relationship with William. How would her coworkers react if they knew the real reason behind her promotion? What would happen if her family, who adored her, found out? Another part of me considered a quieter but equally devastating approach, using her own tactics against her, making her feel the sting of betrayal in the same way she had made me feel. I wasn't going to be the man who quietly suffered in silence anymore. I refused to let her get away with this. The moment I found out about her betrayal, I knew I had to take action. I couldn't let her think she could destroy our marriage and walk away unscathed. I had the confession, but I knew that wasn't enough. I needed more. Something concrete that would force Evelyn to face her lies and leave no room for doubt. So I took the step that felt right in my gut. I hired a private investigator. I needed someone to dig deeper into Evelyn's time in Miami, to get the evidence that would expose her for what she truly was. I wanted receipts, photographs, and text messages. Anything that would back up what I already knew. It didn't take long for the investigator to deliver. Within a few days, I received a thick folder filled with the evidence I needed. The documents and photos were damning. There were hotel receipts with William's name on them, photographs of Evelyn and William at a romantic dinner, her head resting on his shoulder with his arm around her. And the text messages, dozens of flirtatious, intimate messages that crossed every line of professional conduct. It was all there, and there was no denying it. Evelyn had gone further than I could have ever imagined. My chest tightened as I read each message, knowing I had the proof I needed. I wasn't just going to let her walk away from this. I would expose her in front of everyone she had ever trusted. She needed to feel the shame of what she had done, the isolation that comes with being caught in a lie of this magnitude. The repercussions had to be felt by her, by William, and by anyone else who might have been complicit in keeping this secret. Evelyn's birthday was just a week away, and she was already planning a big party, inviting all our family and friends. She was completely oblivious to what I knew. She thought everything was fine between us, asking me to help with the decorations and preparations. I played along, keeping up the facade, all the while knowing that the perfect opportunity. As Evelyn excitedly got ready for her birthday party, discussing plans for the evening, I rehearsed what I was going to say. I wanted to be calm, to maintain control of my emotions, but the anger that bubbled under the surface was almost too much to contain. The night of Evelyn's birthday party started like any other celebration. Guests arrived, chatting and laughing as the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. I stood in the corner, watching the room, pretending to be the attentive husband. Inside, however, I was a storm of emotions, anger, pain, and the feeling of betrayal. Everything was set up perfectly. The slideshow I'd prepared, intended to celebrate Evelyn's life, was ready to go. What Evelyn didn't know was that this slideshow wasn't just going to show our memories together. It was going to reveal the truth. The first few slides were innocent enough. Photos from her childhood, images of our wedding day, our honeymoon, and all the happy moments we had shared over the years. The room was full of smiles and laughter as the guests reminisced about the beautiful times we'd had. But as the slideshow continued, the tone began to shift. The picture started to change, and so did the atmosphere in the room. I stood up, carefully watching everyone's reactions as I addressed the guests. My voice was steady, but inside, I was trembling with a mix of anticipation and rage. We've all shared beautiful memories with Evelyn over the years, but some of you may not know the truth about the woman you think you know. A murmur rippled through the room. Some guests turned to each other in confusion, while others sensed that something was about to happen. As the lights dimmed and the next slide appeared, the room fell eerily quiet. The first image that flashed up on the screen was a photo of Evelyn and William, taken at a rooftop bar in Miami. They were standing opposite each other and engrossed in a kiss. Michael's hand might gently cup the Evelyn's face, while she put her hands around his neck. The stunned silence in the room was palpable. The next slide appeared, and I could hear gasps as the screenshots of text messages between Evelyn and William were displayed. The first message read, "Last week was unforgettable. Can't stop thinking about you." It was clear and unmistakable. Evelyn and William had shared something intimate during her time in Miami. The room buzzed with disbelief and whispers, but I wasn't finished. This was only the beginning. I clicked to the next slide, and a hotel bill appeared on the screen. The bill was in Evelyn's name, but William's name was listed as the guest. The implications were clear. Evelyn hadn't just spent time with William during her business trip. She had stayed in the same hotel with him. As the photos continued to appear, each one more damning than the last, the guests' reactions grew more intense. I turned to Evelyn, who was now visibly shaking, her face pale with shock and horror. She tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. I could see her searching the room, her eyes pleading for someone to step in, to save her from this moment, but no one moved. No one offered any comfort. In fact, her mother, who had always supported her no matter what, turned away with disgust. Evelyn's best friend, who had stood by her side through everything, stared at her in disbelief, unable to meet her eyes. I stepped forward, my voice icy cold. "You lied to me. You lied to all of us," I said, my words slicing through the tension in the room. "This is the woman I trusted. This is the woman I loved. And this is the woman you all thought you knew." Evelyn's eyes welled up with tears, but she still couldn't speak. "Please," she finally managed to choke out, "I didn't mean for it to happen this way. It was a mistake. Please understand." I didn't let her finish. "No, Evelyn. You made a choice," I interrupted, my voice sharp. "This wasn't a mistake. You went to Miami knowing exactly what you were doing. You chose to betray me, and now everyone will know what kind of person you are. This wasn't just some lapse in judgment. This was calculated. You knew what you were doing, and now you'll have to face the consequences." The room was filled with shocked whispers as Evelyn stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. Her facade, the one she The rest of the party felt like a dream, a surreal blur of silence and discomfort. One by one, the guests filed out, each avoiding eye contact with Evelyn, as though she had become radioactive. Her family, who had always been close to us, stood in stunned silence, unable to process what had just unfolded. Evelyn's parents, usually so full of warmth and love, were now mere statues, their faces frozen in disbelief. Her friends, too, were struck dumb, too ashamed to speak, unsure of how to reconcile the woman they thought they knew with the one who had just been exposed. William, who had been invited under the pretense of being just a work friend, quickly disappeared out the back door, avoiding the confrontation that was inevitable. I couldn't even muster the energy to feel anger toward him in that moment. My focus was solely on Evelyn and what had just transpired. The man who had taken advantage of my trust was no longer my concern. She was. As the last of the guests trickled out, the house fell into an eerie silence. Evelyn stood in the middle of the living room, her hands trembling, her face pale and red from crying. I watched her, my heart still in pieces, but my resolve unshaken. She collapsed in front of me, tears streaming down her face, desperate for forgiveness. "Please don't do this. It didn't mean anything," she sobbed, her voice cracking with guilt and regret. "Please, let's just go back to how things were. I'm sorry, I swear I'll make it right. Please just forgive me." Her words, the same ones she'd likely used to justify her actions to herself, meant nothing to me anymore. How could I ever look at her the same way? The love I had once felt for her had been shattered beyond repair. Trust was a fragile thing, and once it's broken, it can never return to its original state. There was no going back. "I can't," I replied, my voice cold and steady, though my chest felt like it was on fire. "I can't go back to a life of lies. You made a choice, Evelyn, and I can't live with that." Without another word, I packed her bags that very night and told her she has to leave. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Staying in the same house with her would only prolong the pain and make the betrayal feel even worse. The weight of her deceit was too much to carry, and I couldn't pretend anymore. The next morning, I filed for divorce. I didn't leave anything to chance. I submitted all the evidence, photos, messages, receipts, anything and everything that would expose the truth. It wasn't just about ending our marriage. It was about making sure the world knew what she had done, making sure that she would be held accountable for the mess she had created. I couldn't allow her to get away with it, to continue with her life as though nothing happened. For the first time in months, I felt some semblance of peace. The worst was over, and now it was time to rebuild. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share, and leave a comment below with your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe for more unbelievable stories that will keep you coming back for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.